As an independent video game developer comprised of only a few men, Renegade Kid does a pretty good job when it comes to dishing out well-crafted material within their budget. They've been around before this, but their 3DS eShop debut title, Mutant Mudds, was my first experience with the studio, and something about it just really clicked with me. The gameplay, the retro graphics, beautiful sound effects, and even the chiptune soundtrack, which is quite glorious by the way. That World 1-1 theme though? Yum yum! It all really just helped build in me a fondness for Renegade Kid, so I keep my eyes open to whatever they're cooking up next, like Treasure Knots. Speaking of which, that game was put on the back burner because they had an itch to do another project that started out as a 2D remake of Moon Chronicles, and eventually morphed into its own game, and that is Xeodrifter. Xeodrifter follows the footsteps of an interstellar drifter traveling amongst the stars who collides with a rogue asteroid. This giant heap of rock damaged the warp core of his spaceship, thus stranding him between 4 mini-planets. So, Mr. Nomad must explore these 4 different worlds in search of a new warp core so he can continue on his merry way. The storyline of Xeodrifter is by no means its strong suit, it's just there as a means of giving us an exposition so we're not totally left in the dark as to what is going on. But after spending several minutes, once you get dropped into this adventure and set out to one of the 4 planets, you can immediately start to see that it was heavily inspired by Nintendo's beloved Metroid series. It drops you in without any sense of direction on where to go, all the while tacked on with giving you free reign to explore all 4 planets right from the get-go. Since you have literally no idea on where to start, it's up to you to put your detective and exploration skills to the test and navigate through these perilous worlds and see what they have to offer. What keeps the game moving and gives you a measure of direction are the multiple roadblocks a la the Metroid series that can only be bypassed by using a handy-dandy ability. That means Xeodrifter comes packing with a good helping of backtracking as you go back and forth between the different planets and lock more and more abilities. That's where the cluster of maps on the bottom screen of the Nintendo 3DS comes in handy, as they give you faint clues on areas you can explore further, which helps eliminate trial and error to a degree. Thankfully, each planet that Mr. Drifter spelunks through has pretty small proportions, so it doesn't take too long to get back to your ship. Hitting a roadblock and having to walk all the way back to the lone teleporter placed somewhere on the planet to get back to the ship can still be tedious though. Controlling your little spaceman feels totally different from Max and his Kung Fu Ninja Grandma in Mutant Mudds, who felt slower and stiffer than Xeodrifter. Xeoman has legs like a gazelle and can move around quite quickly, and even has a slight iciness to his movements, making things a little more slippery. The controls are definitely not bad, but it's going to take a little bit to warm up to. I certainly loved how fast this little guy moved though, since it makes spelunking back and forth feel not as much like a chore. Now, as I mentioned before, Mr. Spaceman will acquire new abilities throughout the adventure, and it's quite a joy unlocking more to see what will pop up next, and plus it helps keep the gameplay fresh throughout. For example, there's a speed dash that is used to run over blistering hot lava, which will definitely feel familiar to Metroid fans, and probably one of my favorites, the ability that transports yourself between the foreground and background. This is very much like Mutant Mudds, taking great advantage of the stereoscopic 3D effect of the system, while also adding a new twist and dimension that the Metroid series hasn't seen before. Plus, Xeodrifter is no foreigner to secrets and hidden goodies, as throughout each planet there are gun and health upgrades barricaded behind obstacles that can only be bypassed by one of those helpful aforementioned abilities. And to make things even trickier to find and feel even more like the world of Samus Aran, there are several false walls just waiting to be found, resulting in something yummy being behind them. The new upgradable blaster is a pretty neat idea that I wasn't at all expecting to see in the game. Each new gun orb upgrade thing you find can be added to a series of gun mechanics such as a quicker shot or even a bullet that zigzags. The more orbs you put on a particular mechanic, the better it gets, and you can freely switch the orbs around at any point, thus allowing for experimentation. The only thing I don't know is what the first gun upgrade does. I understand the others, but that first one's got me. You're going to want to try and find as many upgrades as you can, because Xeodrifter is not the easiest game you'll ever play. Rather, it's got a difficulty that's more on par with Renegade Kid's previous title, Mutant Mudds. What makes it creep up the difficulty scale is that health refills and save points are few and far between, thus calling for you to play your cards just right and not rush into anything. Matter of fact, you may just die at least once on each and every boss, as they are certainly no cakewalk. I love the difficulty that these bosses brought with them, but there's one problem. They all visually look the exact same. Every single one of them. Even the final boss. They're all different colors, if that's something, but it would have been nice to get some other terrible tears to face off against. Their saving grace is that each one adds some new attack or obstacle that you'll need to thwart, thus giving them a gradual difficulty curve. One thing that I admire from Renegade Kid is their pixel art that they pump out, as they just seem to have this certain charm to them that gets me, and they work well in Xeodrifter. Actually, they seem to be better than Mutant Mudds, and they definitely give off that spacey, otherworldly vibe. Plus, they're colorful, so what's not to like? I'm also pleased news that Renegade Kid brought over Mutant Mud's background and foreground jumping, which really utilizes the stereoscopic 3D effect of the system and gives you a great sense of depth. It's nice eye candy for those who like to have the 3D slider cranked all the way up, while also adding a welcoming twist to the gameplay. So if you're a nut for retro pixely visuals, then Mr. Nomad, Spaceman, Astronaut, Matthew McConaughey, Interstellar Drifter's first game should be right up your alley. Now, one thing that Renegade Kid does a fantastic job at is creating some tantalizing chiptune music. Xeodrifter isn't all bright sunshines and rainbows, but rather it takes on a more moody atmosphere, which is reflected in its soundtrack. I really love the theme to the first planet, which thus offers a great way to start the game. That is, if you manage to choose that world first. Here's a snippet. Can I get a yum yum for that? Xeodrifter is certainly not going to be a game that will last you for many hours. You can probably beat it in under 3 hours if you don't take the time to look for every health and gun upgrade sprawled throughout each world. There's not really much else to do in the game once you beat it other than to go on the hunt for the upgrade, so it would have been welcoming if there was some sort of New Game Plus mode to help extend the lifespan of this rather short adventure, because some people might be turned off by the $10 price tag. But if you're hungering for a Metroid-like experience as you wait for the next entry in the series on the Wii U or 3DS, then Xeodrifter will help curb your ferocious appetite. It's basically a mini Metroid, and it does it fairly well, all the while adding some new twists to the formula here and there, such as the upgradable blaster and jumping between planes. Renegade Kid made a fun little romp on the 3DS eShop that's worth checking out and is a nice bridge as we wait for their next new IP, Treasure Knots. So, in all, the GamingPixelShow.com thinks Xeodrifter is a good game. But that will bring us to the end of this review, and if you like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up and add to your favorites and all that good stuff, and you can stay tuned for more videos in the future. But I will talk to you in the next video, guys. Bye!